Hello friends, and either welcome to my channel or welcome back if you have seen any of my videos before. Today I'm really excited because if you've been keeping up with my shorts, you've seen that I've been dabbling with Blender, the 3D software, a little bit, and today I'm going to show you my first completed project, so I really hope you enjoy. This is my first project, like I was saying, so definitely please do let me know if you have any tips for me, and let's jump right into it. Alright, so I already made some little houses that you'll see later on in this video, but right now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start making what is going to be a lighthouse. And just so you know, in case you're curious at all, I am learning how to use Blender by using a Udemy course online, and I'll try to either link the course itself or just the person who is like in the videos because he has a YouTube account and I think that he's pretty like helpful with the beginning steps. Alright, so I cut a lot out of this video to speed up the process a little bit because I am pretty slow still. But as you can see, I went through and I made a base for the lighthouse, and it's already looking pretty done in my opinion. I haven't added any of the materials yet. I will do that later in the video. And I'm just tweaking up the design slightly to make stuff a little bit more even and up to my liking. But that is the completed lighthouse in terms of the model only. So now, of course, because I want to make a whole like lighthouse scene on an island, I'll have to go through and bring in those houses that I talked about making earlier. I'm going to bring those in, and then here they are. I'm going to go and I'm going to actually make an island for the lighthouse and the houses to sit on so we can have our little scene. And to start that, in the video, he told me to start with a plane, which seemed interesting at first, but it does actually end up making sense. So I made it pretty decently sized, and then I went and I added a sphere to the plane, and the sphere is actually going to be what acts like the base to my island, which obviously it will not stay in this shape, but you'll see how I go through and I change it and alter it, because in this part of Blender, it's actually really cool. You can go through and you can literally sculpt what you want the shape of anything really to be by just pulling out like the faces and the vertices. And this part, if I were to show the whole process, would actually take kind of a while to get to the point where I'm happy with how my island is looking. So I am just going to skip ahead a little bit to show you what the final island shape looks like. So at this point, my island shape is pretty much finished up. If you notice that my island looks a little bit different, like it's a little bit less low poly, that is because I ended up at one point switching the tool I was using to like sculpt to add on more faces so that it would more quickly change the overall island shape. And of course, since I am still so new to Blender, this whole process was really, really fun to me, but obviously like new. So parts of the island for a while look kind of silly, kind of funny. But if you take a look, you can see what I'm trying to go for is on the left, there is somewhat of a raised area, which is where I want my lighthouse to sit. And then on the right, there is another raised area on the island where I want a neighborhood full of the little houses I made. I want them to all sit up there as well and kind of like bask in the light from the lighthouse. Because it will be like, eventually when I get to the whole like shading and materials part, you'll see that I ended up making it a nighttime lighthouse scene. So at this point in the video, it might look a little bit different like where I had previously left my island. I took a little bit of a break between like the previous part of making the island and this part of the making the island, which at this point I think I had a little bit better of an understanding because overall the island is much smoother and in my opinion looks much nicer. I also decided that I wanted to make the island quite a bit larger and like take up more of the plane than it originally had, which I think looks much nicer than having a very tiny island, and I think it'll also give me more to work with when I go through and actually place the houses and the lighthouse on the island. And now skipping ahead a little bit, in the video, he said that the look or the overall design of this little project is to be low poly, especially because then it'll run better on like computers because most likely a lot of people that are watching this course might not have the most high-end computers. I have a pretty decent computer that can run Blender pretty well, which is very lucky for me. But I still actually do like the low poly look. I think it looks very nice in this scene. So now that it is low poly, you'll see I'm just going through and finishing up the island layout by making sure that all the edges are nice and clean. And now I'm going to start placing my houses and lighthouse on the island. So this is where all of my work is actually going to start to pay off and turn into an actual scene, which is the part I was really, really excited for. Because of course, when you first start learning a software like Blender, you can't really like just jump right into the art. I did actually spend quite a bit of time just messing around with like the controls, which that is a completely different approach to learning this new software than what I used to learn like a digital software such as Procreate. When I started using Procreate, I didn't even watch a single like tutorial on YouTube or anything to help me figure out how to use it. I kind of just jumped right into the app and started messing around with the layers and messing around with the brushes and got to a point where at least I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with the app and can make pretty decent art if I really put a lot of time into it. But I do know that had I started out by like learning the tutorials and actually learning how to use some of the tools that are within the app, I definitely would have had an overall better time learning how to use the app. And even today, I would probably be more further along with my digital art skills. It would likely have like better techniques to speed up the process. Because I feel like I do talk about pretty often, or at least somewhat often, my struggle with like how slow it is for me to like make digital art. So I'm pretty happy with myself and feel like I made the right decision to go through and take a Udemy course to actually learn the software correctly so that in the future when I go through and make art projects, it won't take me too much time or too much struggle to make what I want to create. But that really is just a long-winded story to let you all know that when I was going through and I was making this scene, despite how much fun I was having and overall, like I think it turned out pretty cute and I like it, I was so excited and still am very excited to finally get to the point where I finish the course because I'm only about halfway through and there will be another video coming up pretty soon where I do another project. But I'm only about halfway through and once I am done, I plan on trying to use Blender to make characters and character art because if you know me or you know my art, you know that I really like to draw people. And as of now, all I'm really doing with Blender is making little scenes. So I am very excited to get to the next step. If you have been watching the screen though, you'll see that I have the beginning of what is a little neighborhood on the right, and on the left I have my lighthouse. I'm going to go through and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to get to the point where I'm adding all the color and the materials. Alrighty, so this is where the fun part, in my opinion, really starts to take off. First, I go through and because it's an island, of course it's sitting on some water. So I go and I mess around with the plane to make it blue and make it a little bit reflective so that it does look like water. And then once I finish the water, I zoom in nice and close to my houses and I go through and I start adding their materials as well. For the houses, their base color is like a cream white color or like an off-white. And then the roofs are all going to be red. And although I don't want this to be like an educational video or a video that someone would use to try and like make their own blender shapes, but if you are interested, in order to go through and make sure that only the roofs turn red, you can actually see me doing it. I go and I switch to the selection mode that will only pick up on the faces. And then once you do that, you can go and pick every single face that you want to be whatever material you're doing. So in this case, I pick every single face that I would like to be part of a roof, and then I go through and I just change it to that red color. And this is what my little neighborhood looks like once I have all the houses colored in red. So now I can go ahead and I can start working on the lighthouse and the lighthouse colors. So to begin with, the base of the lighthouse is white, which in Blender, like in the shading workspace, it looks kind of gray, but that is white. And then where the light is, you can already see I went through and I made it in a mission, which later I will make that glow even more. You can't really see it right now, but it will be a light source that lights up the scene later on. And the top I made red, and then from there I will do red and white stripes all the way down the entire lighthouse. And so finally, to really start to finish off this project, we go through and we're going to go and add our light source so that it's very obvious in this little scene that we made. So obviously, because we're on an island, you will have the moon, as long as it's not cloudy, shining at night, and then the other light source will be from the lighthouse. So in order to have these light sources really pop, I wanted to make sure it was nighttime. So to do that, I lowered the value of the background and I made it a little bit blue because at night I feel like the sky looks a bit more blue. It's not just plain black. So now, of course, I can go through and finally add in the light source. So this is the moon that I was talking about. And it's interesting because when you put in the lights in Blender, you're given all these different options. And for the moon, I decided to use the sun option, and I made it a little bit blue because normally moonlight is kind of tinted. There is also light coming from the lighthouse. It's not super obvious, but the light from the lighthouse is just a point light, so it just glows in every direction around it. And finally, you can see my piece is finished. I won't show you the rest of this part because it's just me going through and trying to figure out how to line up my shot to render. And I'll show you that rendered image right now. So here is the finished project, all rendered out and everything. As you can see, there is a final little bit of glow coming from the houses because if it was real life, of course, houses would have lights in them. But that is where I'm going to end this video for today. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye!